The dawn breaks quietly over a prehistoric world as you slowly emerge from the depths of sleep. Welcome to my bedtime history channel. This journey may feel slow, but if you stay until the end, you may begin to see that everything you think you know about human life is not entirely true. Imagine waking up without an alarm piercing the quiet of your bedroom. There is no phone buzzing urgently on the nightstand beside you, demanding your immediate attention. There are no traffic sounds filtering through the window from a busy street. Instead, you open your eyes to the soft gray light of dawn, filtering into a rock shelter. Chapter 1. The Awakening. In this ancient reality, you have no daily schedule to check, no unread emails waiting for your reply, and absolutely no endless meetings to prepare for today. The air inside the rocky shelter is wonderfully cool and crisp, carrying the deep, grounding scent of wood, smoke, and damp earth. Somewhere nearby, in the dim light, you can hear the low, comforting murmur of familiar voices as others in your small group begin to stir. A baby cries briefly in the shadows, then settles quickly, followed by the soft sound of someone laughing. Outside your rocky haven, early birds are calling to each other in the steadily growing morning light. This is exactly how human beings woke up every single day for hundreds of thousands of years. It is now 40,000 years ago, give or take a few millennia, in the vast expanse of prehistoric time. You are a Homo sapiens living somewhere in what we would now call the continents of Europe, Africa, or Asia. Anatomically, you are completely identical to any modern human walking the busy streets of the future. You possess the exact same brain size, the same complex body structure, and the same infinite capacity for language, thought, and emotion. But your world, your daily physical and psychological reality, is so utterly alien to ours that it is almost impossible to fully imagine without guiding your mind backwards. There are no glowing screens dictating the rhythm of your morning, nor are there artificial lights, forcing your pupils to contract unnaturally against their will. Your senses are calibrated completely to the natural environment, tuned exquisitely to the subtle shifts in temperature and the gentle breathing of your sleeping kin. Here, in the Paleolithic era, you are not waking up to an artificial alarm jolting your nervous system into a state of sudden panic. There are simply no alarms in existence, and there is absolutely no concept of being late for anything that needs accomplishing. You have no arbitrary schedule to keep, no corporate hierarchy to navigate, and no boss waiting angrily for your delayed arrival. Instead, your consciousness returns slowly and peacefully, naturally pulled back from the depths of slumber by the gradual lightening of the vast eastern sky. This gentle transition feels utterly different from the frantic modern rush you have been conditioned to accept as entirely normal. In the modern world, time is a cruel master that whips you forward into a relentless frenzy of required economic productivity. You constantly calculate commutes, fear impending deadlines, and carry the invisible weight of endless financial obligations on your tired shoulders. But in this ancient cave, time expands outward like a calm and endless ocean, dictated only by the majestic movement of the sun and the genuine hunger deep inside your own stomach. As the soft dawn continues to paint the rock walls in hues of silver and faint pink, you feel the gentle stirring of warm bodies all around you. The heavy blanket of night is finally lifting, but there is no pressure to immediately leap to your feet and begin producing artificial value. The entire concept of rushing, of hurrying through your existence, of being constantly pressed for precious time are all toxic modern inventions. Your day is governed beautifully and simply by light, by hunger, by the changing weather, and by the turning seasons. There are still hours before you truly need to be doing anything, in particular to ensure your continued survival in the wild. Right now, the most important thing is transitioning from deep sleep to wakefulness in a gradual way that conserves your deep energy. You must not waste the precious calories you will need for whatever unpredictable physical challenges the day might eventually bring your way. So you, along with your kin, stretch slowly and methodically, working out the inevitable stiffness that comes from sleeping directly on the hard earth. The silence of the early morning is profound, broken only by the soft crackle of dying coals and the sighing wind outside. It is not the empty, lonely silence of a modern apartment where thick walls isolate you entirely from your unseen neighbors. It is a full, living silence, rich with the invisible threads of deep connection that bind you strongly to your surrounding tribe. You belong to this small group of humans entirely, and your presence here is absolutely essential to their collective's survival in a vast and unforgiving wilderness. As you lie there, turning your gaze toward the cave entrance, you realize that this slow, unhurried start is true human wealth. You are not poor in resources or desperately struggling every single second to keep yourself and your loved ones alive in this moment. You are rich in time, immersed in a deep state of mindfulness that millions will one day try to meditate their way back toward. The world outside awaits, full of hidden dangers and abundant blessings. But for this one perfect moment, you are simply allowed to rest in utter peace. In this ancient silence, you find a profound sense of peace that modern life has long forgotten. Chapter 2: The Hearth and the Senses. Your awakening senses anchor you to the vital warmth of the fire and the physical presence of your kin. As the gentle slumber retreats from your mind, the first distinct sensation you notice is the cold. It is not the bone-deep, life-threatening cold of deep winter that forces humanity to huddle in terror. Instead, it is that crisp morning chill that makes you instinctively reluctant to leave the immediate warmth of your resting place. You are lying on a modest bed woven from dried grasses and layered with heavy animal skins. You remain pressed closely to the other members of your band, sharing a vital and ancient comfort. This close physical proximity is not rooted in what modern people might consider romantic intimacy. It exists primarily for the sake of absolute survival, as body heat is a precious resource too valuable to waste. In the modern era, we often sleep in isolated chambers, separated by walls and locked doors to maintain our fragile illusions of independence. Here, your individual warmth belongs to the tribe, and their warmth belongs to you. You feel a pure, unfiltered security emanating from the collective breathing of your human family. The second thing you notice permeating the cool morning air is the distinct smell of wood smoke. It is always present in your life, though it grows somewhat faint now because the fire has died down to glowing embers. Mixed with that faint smoke is the natural scent of unwashed human bodies, which is not unpleasant exactly, just deeply and truthfully human. It is accompanied by the scent of rendered animal fat, lingering from yesterday and the earthy mineral smell of the rock shelter itself. You can hear that someone is already awake, which is unsurprising because there is always someone awake in the camp. Sleep in the Paleolithic era was never like the uninterrupted 8 hours demanded by modern productivity experts. You practiced what scientists now call biphasic sleep, waking for a quiet period in the middle of the dark night. During that wakeful period, people would talk quietly, tend the coals, or simply lie thinking, while the world was silent and extremely dark. This rhythmic sleep cycle ensured that someone was always listening closely for sounds that did not belong in the safe zone. They listened for the footfall of a predator or the distant howl, signifying that danger was moving through the vast territory. Safety was never something you could take for granted. It was maintained hour by hour through constant vigilance and deep cooperation. The person who is awake right now is carefully feeding the essential fire, managing the most important skill your people possess. You listen to the soft sounds of their movement and watch the sudden brightening as fresh flames catch on new fuel. If you let this flame die completely, you would have to restart it, using friction methods that were exhausting and incredibly time-consuming. Alternatively, you might have to carry embers from another group, potentially miles away, across unforgiving and dangerous terrain. It is far better to keep it alive, sharing an informal understanding that everyone actively contributes to the continued survival of the whole. The glowing hearth reminds you that true security is not built with stone walls, but with the vigilant care of your tribe. Chapter 3. The First Nourishment. Hunger demands immediate attention. In a world where food is eaten only when the body truly requires nourishment. Let us talk about breakfast in this ancient world. Except your ancestors 40,000 years ago did not have breakfast in any way you might currently think about it. They did not wake up at 7 in the mornings, stumble groggily to the kitchen, and pour themselves a convenient bowl of processed cereal. They did not have arbitrary meal times at all, because the rigid concept of scheduled eating is entirely a modern invention. Instead, they ate simply when food was available, when deep hunger demanded it, and when the rare opportunity presented itself. This approach might sound chaotic to a modern mind conditioned by clocks, but it was perfectly adapted to their natural reality. Picture yourself waking up in that rocky shelter as the first gray light softly filters through the uneven cave entrance. Your stomach growls deeply, sending a clear biological signal that you are hungry and therefore you simply decide to eat. What you consume today depends entirely and completely upon whatever resources happen to be available within your immediate surroundings and what your people have managed to gather. Perhaps there is some leftover meat from 2 days ago remaining when the skilled hunters brought down a large red deer. It has been hanging securely in the cool back of the rock shelter, kept safely away from direct sunlight and hidden from scavengers. It is carefully wrapped in the deer's own thick hide, preserved by the steady chill of the crisp autumn air. The natural cold has effectively kept it from spoiling, though it is admittedly starting to develop that slightly gamey smell. That specific scent is a subtle warning sign, telling you that you should probably finish eating it today before it turns bad. You pull off a thick strip with your hands and begin to chew it slowly, realizing immediately that it is exceptionally tough. It requires real, substantial jaw work, but it provides the crucial protein and rich fat that your depleted body desperately needs. After a long night of deep sleep, this dense caloric intake is exactly what is required to properly fuel your muscles for the unpredictable day ahead. Your teeth are incredibly strong, and your jaw muscles are vastly more powerful than those of your distant, modern descendants. Modern dental analysis of Paleolithic skulls consistently shows remarkable wear patterns that reveal the absolute truth about this ancient reality. These distinctive wear patterns stand as permanent evidence of an entire lifetime spent vigorously processing very tough, unprocessed foods direct from nature. But here is what remains truly fascinating about those ancient teeth. Under a microscope, they consistently show microscopic plant residues hidden deep within them. Your ancestors were not just eating meat every single day, they were actively consuming everything the bountiful environment provided without hesitation. Beside the meat sits a simple wooden bowl, which is really just a cleverly folded section of natural tree bark. This bark has been sealed securely with sticky pine resin and filled completely with wild hazelnuts gathered 3 days ago. You take a few nuts and effortlessly crack them between your strong back molars, relying on pure muscle memory and years of dedicated daily practice. This specific biting technique has been passed down through countless generations, forming an unbroken chain of essential survival knowledge within the band. Children carefully watch adults perform this action from infancy, learning the exact angle and precise pressure needed to succeed without injury. They must crack the hard outer shell perfectly without accidentally crushing the precious, nutrient-dense meat hidden safely inside the nut. Right next to the hazelnuts, there sits a small leather pouch containing a generous handful of sun-dried berries wrapped securely. These are wild blackberries carefully gathered during the brief window of late summer abundance and patiently dried under the hot sun. They are wrinkled and small now, but they represent a precious source of concentrated sweetness in a generally sugar-starved world. You happily eat a small handful, and the natural sugar hits your system almost immediately, providing a burst of quick, uplifting energy. However, the real culinary treasure this morning is the woven basket of starchy roots, sitting quietly near the warm, comforting fire. Someone, most likely one of the older women, possessing decades of botanical knowledge, dug these up yesterday from the muddy riverbank. They are cattail roots, which are incredibly nutritious, but remain basically inedible and terribly tough when consumed in their raw state. So they have been strategically placed near the fire, not directly inside the destructive flames, but just close enough to the radiant heat. The gentle warmth is slowly breaking down the tough plant fibers and converting complex starches into highly digestible, delicious natural sugars. This is the ancient magic of cooking, yet it looks nothing like the clinical, highly controlled processes you know in the modern world. There are absolutely no written recipes, no precise oven temperatures, and no digital timers beeping loudly to tell you when it is done. There is only deep knowledge accumulated over thousands of generations about exactly what sustained heat does to different wild foods gathered locally. The roots have been sitting there all night long, slowly roasting in the residual heat radiating from the undying, glowing embers. By the time morning fully arrives, they are soft enough to eat and surprisingly sweet enough for you to genuinely enjoy. You pull one out carefully, making absolutely sure not to burn your sensitive fingers on the hot, slightly charred outer skin. You peel away that protective outer layer and confidently bite into the warm flesh, feeling an immediate sense of deep, grounding satisfaction. It might not be considered delicious by highly stimulated modern standards, but it is incredibly filling and, most importantly, entirely safe to consume. If eaten raw, these specific roots contain harmful toxins that would inevitably give you a terrible and debilitating stomach ache for days. But once properly cooked through the careful application of steady heat, they become perfectly edible and incredibly valuable to your daily survival. This remarkable transformation, turning toxic plants into safe sustenance through controlled fire, might be our most important technological breakthrough as a species. It effectively doubled or tripled the total number of plant species that your resourceful ancestors could safely and regularly consume without fear. Nourishment is gathered from the landscape and shared without the artificial constraints of modern dining schedules. If eaten raw, these specific roots contain harmful toxins that would inevitably give you a terrible and debilitating stomach ache for days. But once properly cooked through the careful application of steady heat, they become perfectly edible and incredibly valuable to your daily survival. This remarkable transformation, turning toxic plants into safe sustenance through controlled fire, might be our most important technological breakthrough as a species. It effectively doubled or tripled the total number of plant species that your resourceful ancestors could safely and regularly consume without fear. Nourishment is gathered from the landscape and shared without the artificial constraints of modern dining schedules. If eaten raw, these specific roots contain harmful toxins that would inevitably give you a terrible and debilitating stomach ache for days. But once properly cooked through the careful application of steady heat, they become perfectly edible and incredibly valuable to your daily survival. This remarkable transformation, turning toxic plants into safe sustenance through controlled fire, might be our most important technological breakthrough as a species. It effectively doubled or tripled the total number of plant species that your resourceful ancestors could safely and regularly consume without fear. Nourishment is gathered from the landscape and shared without the artificial constraints of modern dining schedules. Chapter 6. The Rare Gamble of the Chase. We have this vivid image of prehistoric life burned into our minds from countless modern action movies. They imagine early humans waking up each morning and frantically heading out to wrestle saber-toothed cats. Hollywood loves this dramatic narrative of daily death matches against massive beasts. But the actual reality was far more strategic and infinitely more patient than those modern stories suggest. Hunting was never a daily grind that constantly filled the camp with endless supplies of meat. It was an occasional, high-stakes event requiring immense planning that usually ended in utter failure. A successful hunt might happen every few days if you were lucky, or every few weeks if not. Let us say today is finally one of those rare days when favorable signs have been building slowly. Scouts recently spotted fresh tracks from a small herd of grazing antelope moving through a distant valley. The chosen group gathers in the early morning, consisting of 6 men and 2 women who are proven trackers. They communicate their complex strategy using a nuanced combination of speech and silent hand signals, refined over thousands of years. They carry beautifully crafted spears, each wooden shaft carefully straightened over fire and seasoned for months. The razor-sharp stone point was napped from high-quality flint traded from a quarry 200 miles away. As the hunting party moves out, there is absolutely no frantic chasing or dramatic sprinting across the open savanna. Instead, they settle into a steady, sustainable walking pace, intently reading the subtle clues left upon the vast landscape. This is exactly where the brutal act of hunting transforms into a highly sophisticated science of deep pattern recognition. One tracker kneels quietly beside a slight depression in the sandy soil, studying the hoof print for several moments. The depth and clarity reveal that the animal was walking calmly, completely unaware of the lethal danger creeping closer. When the herd is finally spotted, the true and terrifying evolutionary advantage of the human predator is fully revealed. we cannot outrun almost any wild animal in a direct, explosive sprint across the open and forgiving grassland. A healthy antelope can easily run far faster than the swiftest human hunter in our entire band. But we possess something no other animal has: the astonishing ability to run for hours under the sun. Thanks to our nearly hairless bodies and profuse sweating, we can outlast beasts that must eventually stop to pant. The hunters begin to jog, maintaining a relentless trot as the startled antelope instantly bolt into the distance. Hours pass, and the searing heat becomes the kind that would drop most predators in their tracks. The human hunters keep moving forward, their unique bodies perfectly designed for exactly this kind of punishing endurance. Each drop of evaporating sweat carries away dangerous internal heat, allowing the relentless pursuit to continue without lethal exhaustion. They form a highly coordinated group, communicating and sharing the immense physical effort to accomplish what seems impossible. Finally, after nearly 5 hours of continuous tracking, they close in on a single exhausted antelope, separated from the herd. The stumbling prey can no longer cool its overheating body, and the exhausting chase reaches its inevitable and lethal conclusion. One hunter moves in close enough, throws a spear, and moments later, the long struggle is over. The hunt is a masterpiece of patience and endurance, proving that the mind is our most lethal weapon. Chapter 7: The Kill and the Social Glue. The hunters stand in silence around the fallen animal, but they do not begin cheering or celebrating just yet. First comes the practical work, beginning with a quick, precise cut and a silent offering of respectful acknowledgement. Evidence from prehistoric sites suggests early humans performed quiet rituals around successful kills to deeply honor the animal. They expressed profound gratitude to whatever spirits or natural forces they believed governed the unpredictable and dangerous hunt. Taking a life was never considered a casual event. It carried a heavy psychological burden that required great respect. Then comes the butchering process, which is itself a highly sophisticated technical operation, executed with absolute precision. These hunters know animal anatomy far better than most modern surgeons know the inner workings of the human body. They quickly separate the choicest cuts of rich meat for immediate consumption, and vital organs are prepared for eating on site. The heavy hide comes off in one valuable piece, deemed essential for crafting warm winter clothing and secure shelter. Two runners head back to camp at top speed to bring crucial reinforcements for carrying the immense load. Leaving meat unattended on the open plains means lions, hyenas, and vultures will claim the prize within mere hours. The human body simply cannot carry the entire carcass of a large antelope across 10 miles of rough terrain. Eventually, more people arrive from the distant camp, including respected elders and children old enough to help carry meat. The exhausting trip back to camp transforms slowly into a joyous celebration because successful hunts are extraordinary social events. There will be a massive feast tonight, engaging stories told around the bright fire, and probably rhythmic dancing. The hunters will recount the long chase in exciting detail, embedding crucial strategy and persistence into the community memory. This deeply shared experience cements group cohesion, proving that survival involves collective effort far above individual glory or pride. Food distribution is not driven merely by noble generosity, but by a complex and necessary system of risk sharing. You share your meat today because you know, with absolute certainty, that you will fail and go hungry tomorrow. When that inevitable failure happens, you will rely entirely upon the generosity of others to feed your own children. Every single member of the band understands this invisible contract written deep into their very bones and genetic code. The successful hunter does not boast arrogantly about their skill, because arrogance threatens the delicate social balance of the tribe. Instead, they often downplay their tremendous achievement, allowing the grateful community to distribute the heavy meat with total fairness. This delicate dance of humility and absolute interdependence kept our fragile species alive through the harshest climates imaginable. We survived because we learned to trust one another, completely in the face of constant danger. Every scarcity is conquered when a community pools its resources and shares the burden of existence. Chapter 8: The Rhythm of Creation. By midday, the camp transforms into a quiet workshop filled with the steady and purposeful rhythm of creation. You sit near the warm embers of the fire, listening to the sharp, clear sound of stone striking against stone. It is a deeply familiar acoustic background that has echoed through human settlements for hundreds of thousands of years. This is not the frantic rushing noise of a modern factory floor pounding out disposable plastic goods. It is the slow and deliberate sound of intentional survival shaped by patient human hands and ancient unwritten knowledge. Your aunt sits comfortably on the worn earth holding a smooth, heavy hammerstone, carefully in her right hand. In her left hand she cradles a large dark piece of raw flint gathered from a distant rocky riverbed. She does not strike the stone blindly or with uncontrolled brute force, hoping for a lucky and useful break. Instead, she turns the flint slowly in the sunlight, studying its natural ridges and hidden internal flaws with intense focus. She is reading the solid rock exactly like an experienced scholar reads a precious and fragile ancient manuscript. When she finally strikes the flint, the movement is incredibly fluid and deceptively simple to the untrained modern eye. The hammerstone connects at precisely the perfect angle, sending a razor-sharp flake spinning safely away into the dust. That single flake now possesses an edge that is significantly sharper than a modern steel surgical scalpel used in hospitals. She repeats this rhythmic process, knocking away useless material to slowly reveal the lethal spear point hidden deep inside. It requires a masterful understanding of natural geometry and physics executed entirely through ingrained muscle memory. In the modern era, we have completely lost this profound physical connection to the vital tools that sustain our lives. We purchase mass-produced items from brightly lit stores without ever knowing whose invisible hands actually shaped the raw materials. We discard broken things without a second thought because replacement is always instant and effortless in a high-tech world. But in this ancient camp, every single object possesses a deep personal history and an irreplaceable material value to the tribe. A broken spear point could mean a failed hunt, which might ultimately lead to devastating winter starvation. A few paces away, your older brother is completely absorbed in working with a tough piece of shed deer antler. He is patiently carving it into a specialized barbed point designed specifically for spearing slippery river fish in the shallows. He uses a sharp stone burin to carefully scrape the hard antler, creating thin, pale curls that accumulate steadily. His hands are calloused and covered in small healing cuts from years of performing this exacting physical labor. He will spend the entire afternoon focused entirely on producing just one single perfectly balanced and functional hunting tool. Meanwhile, on the far side of the crackling fire, 3 women are working together on essential winter clothing production. They are vigorously scraping, a massive animal hide stretched tightly across a sturdy wooden frame lashed together with tough sinew. The work is physically exhausting, requiring them to lean their entire body weight into the scraping tool over and over. They must carefully remove every single trace of fat and flesh, otherwise the precious hide will rot and become completely useless. They converse quietly while they work, sharing the heavy physical burden through a deep unspoken sisterhood of vital survival. Once the hide is properly cleaned and softened, it must be carefully cut and sewn together to create warm garments. One woman is currently using a tiny, delicate needle crafted meticulously from the small, strong bone of a fast bird. She pushes a thread made from animal sinew through the thick leather, creating tailored trousers and heavy protective coats. Without these highly specialized winter garments, the entire band would quickly freeze to death when the brutal snows eventually arrive. The invention of the eyed needle was a technological revolution just as important as the modern microchip. You sit quietly among them, using a small scraper to shape a piece of hardwood into a digging stick. You feel the deep and grounding satisfaction that only comes from creating something genuinely useful with your own bare hands. The fresh wood shavings smell sweet and earthy, mingling perfectly with the omnipresent scent of wood, smoke, and tanned leather. You fall into a meditative flow state where the passing of time simply ceases to matter or register in your mind. There is only the tool, the wood, and the steady rhythmic motion of your sweating hands. This beautiful specialization of labor allows the entire fragile band to thrive in a dangerously unpredictable and harsh natural environment. Your aunt makes the stone blades, your brother crafts the antler points, and the women produce the vital winter clothing. No single person needs to know absolutely everything, because the collective mind of the tribe holds all necessary survival knowledge. You exchange these vital skills freely, ensuring that every single member has exactly what they need to face the coming darkness. Your identity is not defined by what you consume, but rather by what you can skillfully create. Even in this world dictated by raw survival, there is a profound and unnecessary desire to make things inherently beautiful. Your aunt does not just leave her stone blade rough and functional. She carefully flakes the edges into perfect symmetry. She spends extra precious time refining the shape, simply because the aesthetic harmony pleases her deeply ancient human mind. This instinct to decorate, to perfect, and to appreciate pure form is what truly separates you from the other intelligent animals. The tools are not just utilitarian objects, they are physical manifestations of human pride and enduring spirit. As the afternoon slowly progresses, the pile of finished tools and softened hides steadily grows around the busy camp. Everyone has contributed something meaningful to the collective wealth of the tribe, ensuring their continued existence for another turning season. You set your finished digging stick down and run your thumb over the smooth wood, feeling a quiet inner triumph. You are not alienated. From your labor you see the direct and immediate result of your patience and focused effort. In a world stripped of artificial distractions, the act of focused creation becomes a deeply spiritual and grounding practice. Craftsmanship binds the community together through the silent language of shared labor and necessary art. Chapter 9: The Wealth of Time. We often imagine our distant ancestors locked in a perpetual and desperate struggle for basic daily survival. Modern narratives suggest that prehistoric humans spent every single waking second frantically searching for scarce food just to avoid imminent starvation. But anthropologists who have carefully studied surviving hunter-gatherer societies reveal a beautifully different and shocking reality. Once the necessary daily tasks of gathering plants, hunting meat, and maintaining crucial tools were completed, the mandatory work actually stopped. There was absolutely no arbitrary concept of a standard 8-hour workday or an endless grinding corporate hustle to accumulate unnecessary excess. In reality, adult members of your Paleolithic band typically spent only 4 to 6 hours a day on actual subsistence labor. Once you secured enough calories for the immediate future and fixed whatever tools required immediate attention, you simply put your tools down. The radical prehistoric concept of having enough completely governed the natural rhythm of your uncomplicated daily existence. There was absolutely no social pressure to continue endlessly producing goods when the essential immediate needs of the entire community were already met. Instead, the remainder of your daylight hours stretched out into vast and unstructured oceans of quiet leisure. You now find a comfortable sunlit patch of soft grass situated just outside the cool, damp shadows of the deep rock shelter. You lie flat on your back, staring up into the immense unbroken canopy of ancient trees towering massively above your head. A close relative sits quietly beside you, gently parting your thick hair to search carefully for ticks and troublesome biting insects. This intimate act of mutual grooming is not merely about physical hygiene, but represents a crucial and comforting form of ancient social bonding. The physical touch lowers your heart rate and promotes deep, calming peace. When modern humans finally accumulate a rare moment of free time, they often feel a crushing and unnatural sense of secret guilt. We have been deeply conditioned by industrial capitalism to believe that our ultimate worth is tied directly to our endless economic productivity. Even when we attempt to rest, we desperately fill the silence with glowing digital screens, endless scrolling, and manufactured artificial entertainment. We are terrified of being left completely alone with our own unfiltered thoughts in the vast and echoing corridors of our own minds. But you feel absolutely zero guilt for resting your physical body. Here, in the Paleolithic era, there is no such thing as wasted time because time cannot be hoarded or monetized by anyone. You allow your mind to wander freely, observing the slow drifting puffy clouds and listening to the complex melodies of singing birds. This unstructured observation is actually a form of deep and essential meditation that constantly calms the often overwhelmed human nervous system. You are quietly processing the complex emotional events of the week, storing necessary information, and mentally mapping the subtle, shifting patterns of the changing seasons. Doing nothing is truly essential internal healing work. Nearby, several young children are running through the tall grass, playing complex games that seamlessly mimic the serious actions of adult hunters. They throw small, harmless sticks at imaginary prey and practice moving completely silently through the dry and crackling autumn underbrush. They are learning essential and lethal survival skills entirely through joyful, unstructured play, without any rigid formal instruction or arbitrary grading systems. You watch them with a soft smile, feeling the warm sun slowly moving across your face as the peaceful afternoon gradually deepens. You do not check any rushing clocks measuring fleeing seconds. Modern humans invented marvelous and intricate machines, specifically designed to save precious time, yet we have somehow become the most time-starved species. We traded the immense and quiet freedom of the Paleolithic savanna for the comfortable, but relentless and crushing, cage of the urgent clock. We believe that we are vastly wealthier than you simply because we possess abundant material goods and tremendous, miraculous technological power. Yet looking at you resting peacefully under the ancient open sky without a single care for tomorrow, one must seriously question who is truly impoverished today. You possess ultimate living wealth. As the sun eventually begins its slow and majestic descent toward the distant purple horizon, the temperature gradually starts to drop again. The long and quiet interlude of absolute leisure is naturally drawing to a peaceful close without any jarring alarms or sudden commands. Your body gently signals that it is time to sit up and prepare for the essential rituals of the approaching prehistoric evening. You feel utterly rested, deeply grounded, and completely connected to the natural rhythms of the vast living world expanding infinitely around you. The day matches your human soul perfectly. True freedom is found in the unstructured moments where the mind can simply wander and observe the world. Chapter 10: The Invisible Web. You live in a small and intimate band consisting of roughly 30 or 40 people moving together. The group rarely exceeds 50 individuals because larger populations quickly become too unstable and prone to violent division. It is a community small enough that you intimately know every single voice, every distinct laugh, and every unique footstep approaching in the dark. Natural selection has gently pushed your ancient ancestors into this specific sweet spot of human social organization. This living room-sized society is deeply personal, leaving absolutely no room for modern concepts of complete anonymity or hidden actions. In this close-quarters existence, everyone fits neatly into a complex mental map that you constantly update and maintain. You know exactly who is consistently generous with their foraged berries and who tends to hide the choicest cuts of meat. You remember who is always willing to share the heavy burden of gathering firewood and who conveniently disappears when the hard work begins. Everyday frictions inevitably erupt over shared resources, broken tools, or misturns watching the crucial nighttime protective fire. You cannot simply walk away from these conflicts because you will be sleeping 10 feet from these exact same people every single night. Without formal police forces, written laws, or stone prisons, you must keep the delicate peace using far more subtle psychological methods. The tribe relies heavily upon gossip, active mediation, and carefully cultivated personal reputation to maintain essential social order and prevent deadly violence. Gossip in this ancient context is not malicious idle chatter, but rather a highly effective community warning system and essential news network. The stories told around the glowing evening fire quickly become your permanent social credit score within the fragile prehistoric community. This invisible reputation directly determines who will willingly help you when terrible danger approaches or when winter resources suddenly dwindle to nothing. When hot tempers inevitably flare over a perceived insult or a stolen tool, the respected elders step in to act as crucial mediators. They gently remind everyone involved of their shared past hardships and recount important acts of past kindness to cool the boiling anger. Mediation is an absolute survival strategy because an unresolved feud can easily split the small group, leaving everyone terribly vulnerable to complete starvation. Human connection and social harmony are never considered optional luxuries in this unforgiving and vast prehistoric wilderness. They are the fundamental and invisible technologies that allowed our physically weak species to eventually conquer the entire planet. The raising of vulnerable children deeply reflects this intricate web of complete social dependence and unbreakable mutual obligation. Children do not belong exclusively to just one isolated nuclear family hiding behind closed doors, as they do in the modern world. They truly belong to the entire cooperative network of care surrounding them from the very first moment they take a breath. Multiple adults willingly feed, protect, and teach the exact same children, creating an invisible and unbreakable safety net woven through every life. Your survival depends absolutely on other people, from the moment you are born until the very last breath you take. Human connection is not a luxury, but the fundamental technology that allowed our species to conquer the planet. Chapter 11: The Wider Network and the Fallen. While your daily existence centers entirely around the intimate circle of your immediate band, the wider world is never truly empty of other human life. Beyond the familiar valleys and the comforting boundaries of your known hunting grounds, there are other invisible human groups roaming the vast landscape. Encounters with these distant strangers are exceedingly rare and cultivate a complex mixture of deep primal suspicion and essential excitement. You recognize their distant campfires, burning like tiny fallen stars against the massive and unforgiving darkness of the impenetrable ancient night. The prehistoric world is immense, but it is always connected through a fragile and invisible human network. When two different bands finally intersect, the encounter is governed by careful and ancient rituals designed specifically to prevent misunderstanding and deadly violence. You slowly approach each other with open hands and calm demeanors, deliberately showing that no weapons are drawn or hidden in the tall grass. This is not just a casual social meeting, it is an absolute biological necessity for the long-term survival of the entire human species. Small isolated bands cannot survive forever without exchanging crucial, survival information, essential materials, and most importantly fresh, genetic diversity. You willingly trade high-quality flint exotic pierced shells and the complex spoken stories of distant unknown lands. Language in this ancient era is not primitive grunting, but a highly complex and beautifully nuanced system of precise emotional and practical communication. The strangers speak with a distinctly different rhythm and unfamiliar cadence, yet you can still manage to understand their core intentions perfectly without endless confusion. You share critical intelligence about the massive shifting herds, the sudden drying of deep rivers, and the terrifying movements of large, dangerous predators. The oldest members of both groups sit together near the crackling fire, acting as walking libraries, containing decades of essential unwritten historical knowledge. Their deep wrinkles map the painful starvations and magnificent triumphs of the past. Yet even with this vast shared knowledge and deep community support, the absolute fragility of human life remains, a constant and terrifying reality every day. People in your ancient world inevitably die young from sudden infections, severe, traumatic injuries, or tragic accidents while climbing high trees. A simple cut from a slipped stone knife can swiftly evolve into a lethal fever that no herbal remedy can ever cure. When someone breathes their last breath in your quiet camp, the ordinary rhythmic flow of daily Paleolithic life completely shatters. Essential gathering trips and vital hunting expeditions are immediately and respectfully postponed by the mourning tribe. What truly separates your species from every other intelligent animal trembling in the wilderness is exactly how you respond to this sudden and tragic death. You do not simply abandon the lifeless body to the waiting scavengers or walk away apathetically from the cold remains of your beloved kin. Instead, the entire grieving community gathers together to perform careful and deeply intentional actions that hint at a profound awakening of human spiritual consciousness. You gently wash the cold limbs and carefully fold the stiffening body into a tight, peaceful fetal position, mimicking safe slumber before birth. The community touches the body with tremendous tenderness and profound unspoken respect. The mourning family then brings forth vibrant red ochre, carefully grinding the rare iron-rich earth into a fine and brilliant blood-colored powder. They lovingly dust this bright crimson pigment over the pale, lifeless skin, as if desperately trying to restore the warm flush of missing life. This deliberate application of color is deeply symbolic, suggesting a profound belief that the deceased individual is preparing for another extraordinary sacred journey. They are buried alongside beautifully crafted stone tools, carefully pierced animal teeth, and generous slabs of rich meat sourced from the final successful hunt. These precious items represent a massive investment of time willingly surrendered to the earth. This gentle burial suggests something far more profound than the simple sanitary disposal of a decaying form in a dangerous environment. It indicates that your band cultivates a powerful inner belief that the dead continue to exist somehow beyond the final exhale of breath. Perhaps you believe their invisible spirits slowly transform into the majestic forest animals or travel upward to join the glowing constellations drifting endlessly above. When someone dies, people instinctively sit much closer together, at night lowering their anxious voices, while frightened children ask quiet questions. Death becomes an opening to seek meaning in an often brutal world. In the lingering aftermath of the somber burial, the adult members gather near the warm fire to tell poignant stories about the departed soul. They vividly recount the dead person's incredible physical bravery, their boundless social generosity, and even their highly amusing past foolish mistakes without any lingering judgment. Through this deliberate and sustained oral tradition, the deceased individual never truly disappears, but simply transforms into a permanent guiding ancestor for the living tribe. Their specific memories and crucial past experiences continue to actively teach and protect the vulnerable surviving members through the coldest and darkest incoming winters. Social life soundly defeats the absolute finality of physical death. You survive the terrifying vastness of the prehistoric landscape precisely because you are deeply embedded within this intricate network of endless obligation and enduring memory. You survived because your mother remembered the poisonous plant and because your uncle carefully taught you how to strike the hard flint perfectly. You endure because when you eventually fall and can no longer walk, your people will willingly carry your weakened body through the deep freezing snow. The gentle burial of the dead knits the fragile living together in a powerful shared grief and a magnificent shared hope for the uncertain tomorrow. In honoring the dead, early humans planted the first seeds of spiritual meaning into the unforgiving earth. Chapter 12. The Descent into the Dark. By the time the essential daily gathering was finally concluded, your ancient ancestors recognized another profound job besides merely staying alive. They felt a deep and unexplained urge to actively make sense of being alive through deliberate and difficult creation. They began to radically transform their immediate surroundings by venturing deep underground into the terrifying and oppressive subterranean darkness. This was not a practical journey for finding essential food or securing safe shelter from the biting winter wind. It was a purely spiritual pilgrimage into the very bowels of the earth, driven by a powerful psychological need. Leaving the comforting light of the familiar, sun far behind you begin to crawl through extremely narrow and freezing stone passages. The thick air instantly grows terribly damp and heavy, smelling strongly of ancient wet limestone and undisturbed mineral dust. You hold a flickering torch crafted from bound branches and animal fat, desperately pushing back the absolute crushing blackness. The silence here is entirely unnatural and deeply disorienting, stripped completely of the wind or the familiar calls of forest birds. Every single breath you take echoes loudly resounding against the close and suffocating walls. Eventually, you emerge into a massive hidden chamber located hundreds of meters beneath the familiar surface of the waking world. Down here, in the absolute depths, the complete absence of natural light induces a profound and disorienting sensory deprivation. Without sunlight changing weather, or the familiar routine of camp life, the human mind swiftly enters altered states of consciousness. The flickering orange firelight casts wild dancing shadows that seem to continuously shift and breathe along the uneven rock faces. The cold stone wall slowly becomes a permeable boundary separating the physical world from the spirit realm. You carefully unpack small pouches filled with finely ground minerals, including brilliant red ochre and deep charcoal black. Mixing these powders with water or rendered animal fat, you create vivid, lasting pigments that will miraculously survive for countless millennia. You place your hand flat against the cold, damp stone and blow the red pigment gently through a hollow bird bone. Removing your hand leaves a perfect and permanent negative silhouette, announcing your undeniable human presence to the absolute void. It is a powerful, silent declaration stating clearly that I was here and I truly mattered. Then, using delicate brushes fashioned from animal hair or simply using your bare fingers, you begin to draw majestic beasts. Magnificent wild horses, towering by sun, fierce cave lions, and massive woolly rhinoceroses start to flow seamlessly across the silent stone. You incorporate the natural bulges and deep cracks of the rock to give the painted animals incredible three-dimensional life. In the wavering torchlight, the painted herds appear to actively breathe and gallop furiously across the subterranean landscape. You are not merely decorating a wall. You are conjuring powerful spirits direct from the unknown void. These spectacular images were intentionally placed in the deepest and most inaccessible chambers, far beyond where anyone needed to go. They were never meant to be casual, decorations displayed proudly for the entire Paleolithic camp to easily admire during daylight. They may have been intense prayers invoking favorable animal spirits for a successful hunt before the dangerous event actually happened. Or perhaps shamans danced frantically in this suffocating darkness, traveling to other hidden realms to speak directly with ancient ancestors. The tremendous effort required merely to reach these chambers proves their utter sacredness. Scattered among the lifelike animals are strange abstract, geometric marks, including complex grids, deep dots, and wavy meandering lines. Modern neurologists suggest these intricate shapes perfectly resemble the brilliant flashes of light seen naturally during deep entoptic trance visions. The artist was documenting the intense internal landscape of the human mind just as faithfully as the external biological world. Making art was a tremendous expenditure of precious caloric energy that could have been safely spent simply resting or gathering. Yet, They chose to create because the starving soul requires nourishment just as desperately as the physical body. The deep impulse to make something entirely unnecessary for bare biological survival, yet utterly beautiful, is uniquely and profoundly human. It represents a radical cognitive leap taking humanity far beyond the brutal and simple mechanics of eating and reproducing. In the crushing darkness of the cave, the vulnerable naked ape became a powerful creator dictating the meaning of existence. They wove complex stories into the unforgiving stone, turning bare physical survival into a multi-layered tapestry of enduring spiritual belief. Through deliberate creation, they discovered a method to defeat the terrifying erasure of relentless time. Art and ritual allowed humanity to build a fortress of meaning against the terrors of the prehistoric night. Chapter 13. Adornment and Rhythm. The beat of the drum dissolves the boundaries between individuals, fostering a shared trance state. You step away from the deep cave entrance and return to the comforting warmth of the campfire light. The sun has sunk much lower now, casting long and dramatic shadows across the dusty ground where you sit peacefully. You reach into your small leather pouch and pull out several tiny shells gathered from a distant coastal region many moons ago. These shells are not merely pretty objects found by chance, but are precious totems representing your unique personal history and your deep spiritual connection to the vast unseen world. You pick up a very fine stone drill fashioned from a tiny sharp sliver of hard, dark flint. With incredible patience, you begin the slow process of boring a perfect hole through the center of a fragile shell. This requires absolute focus and delicate pressure to ensure the thin material does not suddenly crack between your sweaty fingers. You might spend many hours, or even several entire days, perfecting just one single bead for your long necklace. In this world, value is measured not by scarcity, but by the heartfelt intention and time invested. Wearing these ornaments sends a clear and complex message to every member of your band without saying a single spoken word. They signal your specific identity, your social standing, and perhaps even your successful travels beyond the visible horizon. These beads connect you to distant people you may never meet who shared these exact shells along ancient trade routes. In the modern world, people often wear mass-produced jewelry made by unseen machines in faraway factories. But every single bead against your skin possesses a living spirit and a deeply personal human narrative. You reach for a small stone bowl containing a thick mixture of ground red ochre and rendered animal fat. Using your fingertips, you apply the cool red paste in bold rhythmic lines across your forehead and down your strong shoulders. The vibrant color mimics the life-giving blood, flowing through your veins and the radiant energy of the setting sun. This transformation into a decorated being raises your spirit above the mundane requirements of finding food and water. You are preparing your body to join the collective spirit of the tribe in song. As the last visible sliver of the golden sun vanishes, an elder picks up a simple drum made from stretched skin. He strikes the center of the drum with a heavy wooden stick, creating a deep, resonant thud that vibrates within your own chest. This single sound signals the end of individual labor and the beginning of the shared spiritual evening. The rhythm is not complicated or fast, but it is absolutely steady, like the unstoppable beating heart of the living earth. You close your tired eyes and allow the powerful sound to anchor your restless mind. Someone begins to hum, a low meandering melody that sounds like the constant wind blowing through the high mountain passes. Soon, more voices join in layering soft harmonies that rise and fall like the gentle swells of a great ocean. There are no specific words in this song, only pure vowel sounds that express joy, fear, gratitude, and the mystery of existence. You feel the sound waves moving through the air and pressing gently against your skin, linking you to everyone else. The vibration reaches deep into your bones, dissolving the lingering tension from the day. The rhythm gradually intensifies as more people begin to clap their hands or tap their feet against the hard earth. Without any conscious effort, the entire group unconsciously synchronizes their breathing until you are respiring as one single massive organism. This powerful synchronization is a vital biological mechanism designed to forge an unbreakable bond of complete trust between every individual member. In this state of collective trance, the worries of the self disappear into the larger identity of the group. You no longer feel like a separate being, but an essential thread in the web. This shared music is one of the most potent survival technologies that our species has ever developed in its long history. It allows a group of vulnerable individuals to overcome their private terrors and function with a single unified purpose. In the modern world, we often consume music alone through small plastic earbuds completely isolated from the people sitting directly next to us. We have lost this primal experience of using sound to merge our consciousness with others in a real physical space. But here in the firelight, you are completely whole and entirely secure. The dancing firelight casts chaotic and beautiful shadows against the stone walls of the shelter, creating a shifting supernatural realm. You sway your body to the beat, feeling a profound sense of connection to the unseen ancestors who once sang here. The boundary between reality and the spirit world grows flimsy and transparent, allowing your imagination to soar into the night sky. You see the great hunting grounds of the heavens, where the stars are the distant campfires of those who lived before you. This ritual provides the emotional fortitude needed to face another uncertain day. Eventually, the fast-pounding drumbeat slows down and the voices fade into a soft and lingering whisper in the darkness. The intense energy of the ritual dissipates, leaving behind a deep sense of satisfaction and a quiet feeling of sacred connection. Your heart rate gradually returns to its normal resting pace, and your mind remains calm, clear, and ready for sleep. The silence that follows the music is not empty but is instead filled with the resonated meaning of your shared life. You feel intensely alive and deeply grateful for the small band protecting your soul. Shared music transforms bare survival into a transcendent experience that echoes across the vastness of time. Chapter 14, The Circle closes. As the golden sun begins its slow descent toward the distant horizon, the entire landscape undergoes a dramatic and final transformation. The warm orange light of the late afternoon gradually gives way to deep purple shadows that stretch long across the dusty ground. You feel the sharp bite of the cooling air against your bare skin, signaling that the time for roaming the open plains has finally concluded. This natural sunset acts as a quiet internal alarm clock, telling your entire tribe to seek the safety of the central gathering place immediately. Modern humans live in a world where artificial light defies the natural cycle of the sun every single evening without any hesitation. We use glowing bulbs and humming neon tubes to force our bodies into staying awake, long after the proper time for rest. But for you, the retreat of the sun is an absolute and final command from the living earth itself. You cannot argue with the approaching darkness because your human eyes were never designed to navigate the night with precision. You instinctively draw nearer to the central hearth, seeking the only light that matters. The gatherers return from the surrounding forest, carrying massive armloads of dry wood to sustain the vital nighttime fire throughout the cold. They also bring large bundles of soft green plants and aromatic herbs used to repel persistent insects near the sleeping areas. Every piece of fuel is carefully stacked in a specific order to ensure the flames burn steadily until the next dawn breaks. You assist by carrying heavy bladders filled with fresh river water to quench the thirst of the group throughout the long, dark hours. Everyone contributes to this essential routine. Before the last vestiges of daylight completely vanish, you must carefully prepare your individual bedding for the approaching night within the shelter. You flatten thick layers of dried grasses and soft leaves to create a protective barrier against the damp and cold stone floor. Over this natural foundation, you spread heavy animal skins that still carry the faint scent of the creatures that once wore them. These primitive beds represent a remarkable technological advancement, providing essential insulation and preventing dangerous heat loss during sleep. You arrange your specific place close to your kin, feeling warmth. The open landscape outside the protective shelter becomes extremely dangerous once the deep shadows completely consume the entire familiar and known terrain. Your depth perception fails almost entirely in the absence of light, making you extremely vulnerable to the stealthy predators of the plain. Massive cats and fierce hyenas possess eyes that are specially adapted to see every single one of your movements in the dark. You are no longer the master of the world once the sun disappears behind the distant mountains. You are simply a fragile creature seeking the warmth of fire. At the absolute perimeter of your small camp, several semi-tame wolves sleep with their sensitive ears directed toward the impenetrable forest. These early dogs act as a crucial biological warning system wired directly into your deepest nervous system through thousands of years. They can sense the faint scent of a prowling hunter long before your limited human senses detect any significant threat. Their low growls provide an essential layer of security, allowing your tribe to relax their constant vigilance for a few moments. This ancient partnership is fundamental to your survival. At the very center of the camp, the largest and most reliable meal of the day is finally prepared together in peace. Large slabs of rich antelope meat sizzle loudly over the red-hot coals, releasing a delicious aroma that fills the cave. Tough, starchy roots are carefully pounded and placed directly into the glowing ashes to roast until they become soft and sweet. Hard animal bones are split open with stone hammers to reveal the precious and nutrient-dense marrow hidden safely inside. This shared feast is not just about nutrition but collective satisfaction. The evening becomes a strict and beautiful lesson in generosity, because you cannot survive long if you hoard precious food resources alone. You give the best pieces of meat to the older members who can no longer hunt or gather with strength. In return, they share the wisdom of their years, guiding the group through the complex challenges of living in the wild. This constant exchange of value binds the different generations together in an unbreakable circle of mutual respect and care. No one eats alone in this world because solitude is death. As the group finishes eating, conversations soften and change into a gentle, low murmur that mimics the sound of flowing water. People debrief the events of the day, sharing small successes and smoothing over any minor conflicts that may have occurred earlier. You talk about the location of the best berry patches and describe the specific behavior of the animals you tracked through the valley. This constant flow of information is the living library of your people, ensuring that knowledge is never lost. By sharing your day, you release all lingering stress. Above your head, the infinite night sky is crowded with thousands of blazing stars that seem to pulse with secret life. These great celestial bodies inspire complex myths about glowing ancestors and cosmic creatures hunting across the dark plains of the afterlife. You see the same moon that your forefathers watched hundreds of generations ago, connecting you to the deep river of history. The firelight pushes back the encroaching darkness, creating a temporary sanctuary where vulnerable humans can finally exhale and feel entirely safe. You watch the flames dancing in the tired eyes of family. Your mind begins to drift as the rhythmic sound of breathing fills the shelter, marking the end of the day's labors. The crickets outside provide a constant background music that reassures you that life continues. In the shadows beyond the fire's glow, you pull the heavy animal skins up to your chin, feeling the weight of the hide as a shield against the cold. The internal noise of the day simply fades away into a state of pure and unfiltered presence. You are no longer an individual struggling against the world, but a part of the living breath. The psychological burden of survival is lifted for a few precious hours, allowing your brain to enter a state of deep recovery. In this ancient darkness, you discover that human connection is the most powerful tool ever created to combat the cold reality of nature. You are not alone in your fear or your hope, because every single member of the band shares the same heartbeat. The walls of the cave seem to pulsate with the memories of all who slept here before you in this silence. You find absolute contentment in this simple and primary state of being. As the last log on the fire settles into a bed of glowing orange coals, the world grows intensely small and quiet. The only reality that exists right now is the warmth of the person sleeping beside you and the soft glow of light. The entire universe beyond this circle is irrelevant until the sun decides to return and claim the earth once again. You close your eyes, feeling the weight of your tired limbs sinking into the soft grass bedding beneath you. The peace you feel is deep, permanent, and entirely unshakable within this circle of fire. The fire pushes back the darkness, creating a sanctuary where naked apes can finally exhale and feel safe. Chapter 15: The Ancient Sleep. Under a canopy of stars, the band drifts into slumber, safe within their woven net of relationships. Gradually, the animated conversations of the evening begin to thin out as the fire drops from bright dancing flames to deep glowing red coals. Someone carefully adds one final heavy log to the hearth, not for cooking or light, but to keep the bitter night cold away until the morning. Tiny orange sparks rise and vanish into the endless darkness, briefly imitating the blazing stars above before sinking into quiet oblivion. People find their natural places on the soft prehistoric bedding, with small children wedged tightly between warm and breathing adults. The proximity of your tribe provides a physical comfort that no modern individualistic bedroom can ever truly replicate. For the human soul, you feel the gentle rise and fall of your relative's chest against your back, signifying life and continued safety in this harsh wilderness. This shared warmth is a vital resource, conserving the precious calories you worked so hard to gather throughout the long and demanding day. There is no loneliness in this sleeping arrangement, only the profound sense of belonging to a single unified human unit, moving through time together. The external sounds of the prehistoric night settle into predictable and comforting layers that your primitive brain interprets with absolute accuracy. You hear the soft crackle of the remaining coals, the slow rhythmic breathing of your kin, and occasional soft murmurs from unseen dreams. Farther off, in the distance beyond the circle of light, you hear the eerie whoop of hungry hyenas and the deep roar of a lion. These threats are terrifying yet deeply familiar, forming the constant acoustic background of every single human childhood 40,000 years ago. For these few hours of darkness, this tiny cluster of fragile humans is as utterly vulnerable as they will ever be in nature. They have no locked doors, no secure stone walls, and no weapons more advanced than a fire-hardened spear resting within reach. Yet, in another sense wrapped in this protective circle of fire and woven kinship, they have truly never been safer or more secure. They survived this day through pulses of intense effort, balanced perfectly by long stretches of unstructured quiet and simple time spent just existing. Modern humanity built marvelous and intricate machines, specifically designed to save time, only to fill it relentlessly with stress and endless noise. We have traded the quiet freedom of the Paleolithic night for the relentless glow of artificial light and the crushing weight of future obligations. Your ancestors never scrolled through digital screens because their deep attention belonged entirely to the warm fire, the ancient stars, and the family members beside them. They understood that the richest life is not defined by accumulation but by the quality of one's present awareness. You feel the heavy weight of the animal skins pressed against your body, acting as a sturdy shield against the shifting night air. The scent of the furs mingles with the lingering smell of wood smoke, creating a sensory boundary between your sanctuary and the wild world. Your mind begins to loosen, its firm grip on the events of the day, allowing your thoughts to drift like smoke into the realm of deep dreams. In this state of absolute surrender, you are no longer a hunter or a gatherer, but simply life itself. You look up at the same moon that drifts across the vast sky, connecting you to all the generations that slept before you. The same constellations look down upon your bedding, slightly shifted by the immense passage of time but still recognizable in their celestial glory. A child blinks up at those distant stars, fighting sleep for one more story, before their eyes finally close in the dark. Someone reaches over to smooth their hair, promising that the hard hunt and the long walk can wait for the morning light. You feel the invisible presence of those who slept in this shelter long before your own life began in this world. Their memories are woven into the very stone of the walls and the ancient dust beneath your resting feet tonight. You are not an isolated individual flung into a random universe, but a continuous link in an unbroken chain of human survival. This awareness brings a deep sense of purpose and belonging that no modern material success can ever fully provide to your modern soul. You are part of a story that never truly ends. The silence of the cave is not an empty void, but a rich and living tapestry of subtle natural sounds. You hear the distant drip of water secretly carving the stone and the gentle sighing of the night wind outside. These sounds anchor you to the immediate physical reality of the earth, reminding you that you are a biological part of this living planet. In this deep stillness, your busy mind finally finds the permission it needs to stop solving problems and simply exist in the pure present moment. The absence of ego in this ancient setting is a profound relief to your tired and overstimulated modern consciousness. Here you are not judged by your social status, your career achievements, or the wealth you have managed to accumulate. You are valued simply because you are a living member of the band who shares their meat and tends the fire. This primary social acceptance creates a foundation of mental health that is often missing from the high-pressure competitive environment of the modern technological world today. We often speak of progress as if it is an unstoppable ascent toward greater human happiness and permanent security. We look back at your Paleolithic life and see only poverty, hardship, and the constant threat of imminent death. But we often ignore the terrible price we paid for our comfortable modern homes and our instant digital connectivity. We traded the profound peace of the firelight for the constant anxiety of the clock and the fragmented attention of the screen. Looking into the embers, you realize that progress is a very complex trade. The feeling of safety is not something you buy with expensive insurance policies or high-tech security systems in your home. True safety is the warm breath of your family in the dark and the knowledge that someone is always watching. It is the trust that your tribe will protect you while you are helpless in slumber and carry you when you are weak. This primitive security is the most valuable possession any human can ever truly own in their entire lifetime on this earth. You rest in this wealth tonight. If you have enjoyed this slow journey into our shared past, you can gently tap like so. The algorithm spirits know to show more. This simple act of support helps our small community grow and allows us to continue creating these immersive explorations of ancient history. You can subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next narrative journey. When we wake up in a different time, leaving a comment about your own landscape helps us feel connected across the vast distances of our modern and digital world. Tonight you share that same universal human need to stop moving, to be safe, and to let your weary mind finally rest. The hunt can wait until the morning light returns to the eastern sky, and the demanding world can wait for your labors. For now you can sleep under the same ancient canopy that sheltered your ancestors 40,000 years ago in the deep silence. Close your eyes and imagine the last embers fading to black as you sink into the deepest and most peaceful slumber imaginable today. In this ancient sleep, you discover that the greatest human achievement is simply being present within the protective embrace of your fellow man. If you had all the time in the world, would you know what to do with it?